What is the outer darkness in the New Testament of the Bible? This concept of the outer darkness has been used, at least in the past half century or so, by Protestants and evangelicals as an alternative to the concept of eternal punishment in fire. The outer darkness is now the idea of eternal separation from God, a softer form of eternal punishment. First, I would like to point out that concept of eternal separation from God is incoherent because God is omnipresent. There is no place you can go to be eternally separated from God, because if God is not omnipresent, then he is not God. This concept of the outer darkness is coming to us from Matthew chapter 22, verse 1 through 14, the parable of the wedding feast. This is also related to Matthew chapter 25, the parable of the 10 virgins, who are the bridesmaids in the 45th psalm, the wedding psalm. And their job is to carry the lamps to light the procession as the wedding party walks through the city to the home of the groom. This concept also appears in Luke chapter 14, 7 through 14, the parable of the great banquet, which is this same wedding feast, reflecting on the 45th psalm, the wedding psalm. Now, there is an enormous amount of imagery that can be unpacked from these parables. You could probably create hundreds of sermons just based on these parables. But what we want to focus on is what is the outer darkness. Now, in that culture, a wedding would take place between two people who were betrothed to be married. And the wedding celebration would take place by surprise when the groom was ready to bring his bride home with him. And so it was the job of everybody who was coming to the wedding to be ready, to have their wedding clothes ready. And if you were one of the bridesmaids, to have oil in your lamp so you can light the procession as they walk through the city to the home of the groom. And in this case, this is a king's wedding, the son of a king, the heir to the throne. The New Testament writers are reflecting on the 45th Psalm, the wedding song, as a parallel to Christ and his church, his people, coming together to celebrate this great wedding celebration. The people who want to be with him, the people who love him, the people that he trusts the most. Now, the parable of the wedding feast ends like this. But when the king came to see the guests, he saw there a man who didn't have on wedding clothing. And he said to him, "Friend, how did you come in here not wearing wedding clothing?" He was speechless. The king said to the servants, "Bind him hand and foot, take him away, and throw him into the outer darkness. There is where the weeping and grinding of teeth shall be, for many are called, but few are chosen." Now, of course, Calvinists love that few are chosen because they equate being chosen with salvation itself. But that's not the picture. These people are essentially the heirs of the kingdom, the royal family, the people who are going to hold positions of power and authority, who represent the king in his kingdom to the people of the kingdom. Just as we see in Matthew chapter 19, verse 28, the apostles themselves are seated on 12 thrones, and they hold the highest positions of authority in God's kingdom. As Christian believers, we will also serve under the apostles, under the authority of the king himself, representing the king to his kingdom. So imagine for a moment a kingdom where only the royal family exists. That would be a very strange kingdom, and maybe not even a kingdom at all. So what is the outer darkness? Well, what's going on here is we're seeing the image of a man who follows the wedding procession into the king's palace because he knows that there's food and wine at the wedding. He's not coming because he loves the king and his son. He's coming to party. He's coming for all the wrong reasons. His heart is wrong. The outer darkness is actually the same thing as the refiner's crucible, as we see in Proverbs 17:3, the testing of the heart. The reason I know this is because Jesus uses the same wording in the parable of the drawing in of the net in Matthew chapter 13, verses 47 through 51. The parable ends like this: "So will it be in the end of the world. The angels will come and separate the wicked from among the righteous, and will cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, of course, those who ascribe to the doctrine of eternal punishment see the furnace of fire as eternal punishment in fire. And the annihilationist sees the furnace as total destruction by fire. But this completely ignores what this furnace is. This is a high-temperature kiln used for making good things like pottery, the smelting of gold ore, the heating of a refiner's crucible. Christ is using the exact same imagery as Proverbs 17:3, the crucible for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the heart. So is God going to punish this man in outer darkness for all eternity? Well, no. Just like the wedding itself lasts for but a night, this man's outer darkness lasts for but a night. The sun is going to come up in the morning because God makes the sun to rise on both the evil and the good. Believe it or not, eternal punishment exists nowhere in the original Greek manuscripts of the New Testament. God actually loves this man immensely. Jesus Christ died to rescue this man from the jaws of death. Yes, God will put him through the refiner's crucible, the furnace of fire, the kiln that is used for making beautiful things like pottery and for refining gold. He is going to refine this man into pure gold. That is what God does. His punishments are always rooted in his nature of love and goodness and have that goal in mind, the goal of restoration to what he created them to be. God is 100% victorious. It is the picture of the total victory of Christ. God bless you, and thank you for listening.